Pokemon, Hello Kitty, hentai. All things that recently gained Japan massive notoriety amongst pasty white boys. But did you know that this was a masterclass of rebranding? From war criminal Hitler Pal to Kawaii Hello Kitty, today we're peeling back those cute stickers. So let's see what fun atrocities Japan has committed, and trust me, they just keep getting worse and worse. Comfort women. Because hentai didn't exist yet, morale in the army during the 1930s was lower than the ratings of a Jaden Smith movie. General Okamura noticed his men were acting up, so he went to Emperor Hirohito with a plan. Hey, my emperor, the men are quite frustrated. If they can't shoot down there, they're not gonna be able to shoot right over there. You know what I mean? Can we get some, hookers?
Hookers? Hookers? Who do you think we are, Russians? No, but you can't have comfort women. They're not hookers if you don't call them that. Post it on Indeed and leave us.
Hey, you over there. Yeah, you here at the Imperial Army. We are a family. Join us today for some fun activities. All you have to do is comfort the soldiers and we'll pay you well. Alright. Unfortunately, what they signed up for wasn't a rent-a-girlfriend situation. It was for the sex slavery, which included all the regular benefits such as regular massages, shower privileges, and a nice bed and breakfast. But even with all those work perks, they were still worse off than the average American hooker, because at least they can choose their hours and work from home. Word got around, and because Japanese women were free, no one signed up, which put the horn dogs back to square one. But Okamura was Asian. He had a plan. Why have employees when you have slaves? So if you were anywhere in this region here during this time, be afraid, because you were probably dragged into a state-run brothel and assaulted. So out of the 500,000 he kidnapped, most didn't survive, and on average, these women comforted anywhere between 5 to 60 soldiers a day. That's more action than you'll ever see. Wait a minute, carry the one. So according to my analytics, most of you are white, and if you're watching this in the 1930s, you'd probably think you'd be safe, right? Wrong. When they were bored of the Chinese, Koreans, and Filipinos, they would import from Australia and Europe from their good friend Hitler Kitty-san. They wouldn't be treated any better. These women were used and abused, and once they were done with them, a bullet to the head was the best they could hope for. But if they kept you alive, chances are you were pregnant, and the Japanese love to get freaky with this shit. The experiments of Unit 731. So the Japanese wanted to find the answers to the age-old question of, can a baby fetus survive without its mother? Can we make a human chimera hybrid? Can somebody survive with something else other than blood? Spoiler alert, the answer to all these questions is no. And we should believe them too, because they had plenty of volunteers. So how do you test if a fetus can survive without its mother? That's right, you get one of those comfort women, and if they aren't pregnant, you get them pregnant. Rip it, or whatever the baby identifies as, out of the body and observe. Of course, we know now that it can't survive, but back in those days, who knows what would happen. Again, if you were anywhere here or was a prisoner of war, you could be randomly selected to better mankind's knowledge. With experiments like the vivisections, the victims, or volunteers, would be strapped down, cut open, and an organ or two would be taken out. Maybe a limb here or there. The limbs might be crushed, frozen, blown up, or maybe even reattached to the other side or somewhere else just to see what happens. I see. Just as I suspected, volunteers cannot see without eyes, but maybe he's just a special case. Next! Oh yeah, there were no anesthesiologists either because it was wartime. Gotta save money, you know? Just makes good business sense. And besides, can't let those pesky chemicals affect the test results now, can we? So these test subjects were called logs, and after they were done being played with, into an unmarked grave they went, still breathing. So these experiments were done in Japanese-occupied China, a hot and humid place, right? Wrong. This was North China. It was cold as fuck in the winters. Colder than even Canada, but not so cold as Shiro Ishii's heart, their leader, who thought, wait a minute, what happens when a person is exposed to below freezing temperatures for a prolonged period of time? This was a question the Japanese answered in the frostbite testing tests. They would submerge parts of the volunteers into freezing water until their limbs actually formed solid chunks of ice around it. Did they watch Avatar to see if they could recreate it? Who's to say? They would then time how long it would take for the blood to thaw it out, placing bets on it like the degenerates they were. But they also did have some justifiable experiments, if you can even call it that. They tested their guns to see if weapons designed to kill people actually killed people. Yep, gun number 10,001 works. 10,002 works. Nice. 10,003 works. Great. But eventually came to the conclusion that chemical warfare was the way to go. You see, when they weren't testing the effects on incest, they were experimenting with disease, mainly syphilis. And if they didn't have syphilis, well, they had plenty of options to make sure the volunteers got it. They bred the bubonic plague and typhus, testing which strains were more effective at killing. If the victims survived the disease, if the volunteers survived the disease, they would be shot. But if they were killing them quicker, they would be bled out slowly to preserve that sweet, sweet death juice, which is planned to be used to upgrade fleas and unleashed into America. But their plans fizzled out after the bombs on Hiroshima. So Oppenheimer and friends killed about 200,000 people with his bombs, and Japan banned his movie. I wonder what would happen if someone talked about the Nanking Massacre. Nanking is a city in China that got invaded during World War II. This was the most brutal sacking anyone has ever done. Here are some of the ways the Japanese enjoyed themselves here. The rape of girls of all ages, sometimes even in front of their families. I guess this is how NTR was born. A forced incest show. The mutilation of women below the waist. There was no lube back then, so oftentimes they would have to cut them down there for easier penetration. Even though the Japanese are, down there. They probably just did it for fun. And if their head wasn't in the gutter, or they were just waiting their turn, these were the games they played. Killing contests to see who can behead the most Chinese. They would burn people alive, or feed them to the dogs. There's this one game where they would put citizens on the top floor of a building, light the ground floor on fire, and watch them jump off the building. It was a carnival for them. So call them up and plan your next birthday party. I mean, Hitler killed a lot of people, but damn, these people did it for fucking fun. Motherfucking Hitler had to send an ambassador to tell them to chill the fuck out. And if that's not a high bar, I don't know what is. Don't get me wrong, I love Japan, but people seem to think the nukes turned Japan crazy. But honestly, they were already pretty fucked up before that. If anything, it made them better. Anyways, that's all for today.